Is Siobhan Cormick, affectionately known as Siobhan the Realtor. And I've never had a family member to leave a will. Most of the time in my family, someone dies. We are very hopeful and prayerful that there is life insurance, there's a checking account somewhere, and we just are left to make the best decision in hopes that it is the right decision or the decision that they would have wanted us to make. So the very first time I was exposed to a family that had a will was through my friend slash client said Sarah, Makisha Brown. So Makisha, how are you today?
I am well. How are you doing, Siobhan?
I'm good. I'm good. And so Makisha's aunt GLO was the one who left a legacy in a will. So first, tell me a little bit about Aunt GLO.
Okay, so Aunt Glo lived a very long life. She was an educator for 30 years. She was an elementary school teacher. She taught in Fort Worth ISD when she was here. My uncle, before he passed, he's retired Air Force. So that brought them to Fort Worth.
Okay.
And so they traveled the world. So she's taught in England, she's taught in Michigan. And so they retired here in Fort Worth. And so she had a heart for her family. My grandparents were very instrumental in making sure all of their children were educated, went to college, or at least had a certificate or certification in something. And so she, to me, everybody had a different or a personal relationship with Aunt
Mhm.
Gloria. I know that when I moved back to Fort Worth, my child was 5. And so from the age of kindergarten through 11th grade until my daughter got a car, Aunt Glo took her to school and picked it up for me every day. So she put
Wow.
her life on hold to be that person for me who I needed, being a single parent at that time. And
Yeah.
so always taking care of family. She was the person that everybody would call and share a secret with, and
Mhm.
that secret is out there with Laurel Ann because she didn't tell your business unless you gave her permission
I
to
love it.
tell the business. And so a lot of my friends from college have lived with her. She would just take you in. I lived with her my senior year in college. And so just a phenomenal person. People know Aunt Glo. So if I say Aunt Glo and they are a part of my life, they know exactly who I'm
Mhm.
talking about. And so she was just a phenomenal woman and loved by many.
Yeah. So whenever you said Aunt Glo's name, a smile came across their face, and I'm sure they had a story to tell on how she helped them at some point.
Yes, ma'am. Yes.
So Aunt Glo passed away. It's been 2 years, right? 2 years now?
February made 2 years. Yes.
Made 2 years. Okay. And so did she ever talk to you all about her wishes upon her death?
She did. So I told you she was a retired educator. She's very
Mhm.
structured, almost to the point where I felt like she was OCD. Her house was meticulous. She was a minimalist. If you went in her home and you moved a magazine, she would
Mhm.
just walk by and put it back because she knew exactly where it was supposed to go. She had lists for everything. So even like with her medication, she would write down the day she received it,
Mhm.
things like that. She was very meticulous in keeping up with dates and things. And so she had her personal file cabinet that little tote, a metal file cabinet, and it
Mhm.
had all of her information in it. And she was very strategic in talking to me and my godmother, who's also my first cousin, another niece. And she would say, "These are my wishes." And she would open up that file cabinet. She would tell me where it was located when something happens. And if you know her, you would always hear her say, "When I leave this Valley of Tears,
Mhm.
this is where my information is." And so everything was in a folder, organized. I knew, and we knew which life insurance companies to call. She
Mhm.
had already paid for her plot and her funeral arrangement. So the only
Okay.
thing literally that we had to take care of was contacting the funeral home and things of that nature. It was written out who to talk to. She had already left beneficiaries on her accounts. So my godmother, the other executor, was the beneficiary. And then like for her, like I said, she was a teacher. So like for TRS, she and I were both there. Her IRAs, she and I, my godmother, were both the beneficiary. So she was very strategic in her plans and telling us about her plans and what she wanted. Probably a little bit before a year before her passing, she kept
Mhm.
saying, "Keisha, I need to update my will." And so we got her will updated. and then we ended up probating it, all the things that you go through. She was
Mhm.
very specific about making sure, like for her home, she wanted us to sell it. She was specific about the percentages of the profits that
I do
everybody was
remember
going to get for
that.
the home. And so she, even though she had been a widow for over 30 years, she wanted to make sure that my uncle's side of the family was taken care of as well. So it was down to a T who was supposed to get what and what her wishes were. And so, yes, we talked about it. I wouldn't say we talked about it often. I did know that all of her doctors could speak to me, and
Okay.
I was responsible for making the decision if she had the DNR, and for them
Mhm.
to talk to us about that. That was one of the things I knew about. So she had spoken with us about it,
Mhm.
specifically like in September the year before, but she was very key in making sure that we knew what her wishes were, how she wanted it. Like to the T, she did not want a funeral service. She wanted graveside. So
Mm.
everything that she wanted, we honored because she was our GLO and she was good to all of us. And so we wanted to make sure that we all honored her wishes.
Yes. So after she passed away, did that help you all having her wishes, her making them verbally known over the years and then having it documented? How did that help you all with the grieving process? Like I know you still would prefer her be here, right? But how did
Yes.
that help you with the grieving process, knowing her wishes and having everything in line versus the opposite I'm sure you probably had with other family members?
Um, for me, I hate to say it kept me going, but it did help me keep going. She was very good to me. I was like her child. She didn't have any children. And
Okay.
so for me, it was, I want to make sure I execute her wishes to a T. This is what she said she wanted. Um, if she was not instrumental in talking to us about her wishes, I would really be on the struggle bus. Well, what are we going to do? How are we going to do it? Especially with the wishes. She was very specific about the proceeds to her home. And
Mhm.
so if we didn't know that in advance, it was going to be an issue. I feel like I would have been lost and maybe unable to act without
Yeah.
knowing exactly what her wishes are,
Yeah.
and not assuming the
Yeah.
things. The
And I'm
other
sure
thing,
it helped too with family. Like I know families fight during this time,
yes.
right? So y'all really didn't have nothing to argue about because she told you what you was gonna do.
It was really smooth. It was a really smooth transition. And like we said, we saw the will. Everybody in the will saw the will. Of course, we
Mhm.
probated. And when you probate it, it's out there for the courts, for the world to see. And
Mhm.
so we executed her will to a T and did exactly what she asked us to do.
Yeah. So, what is your advice to maybe other people who are afraid to get a will in place or feel like it's not important? Being someone like yourself who's a benefactor of someone who did everything, I would say, the right way. What would be your advice to someone else?
Do it. It's a hard conversation. It's not an easy conversation, but just knowing that you're not leaving your family dumbfounded in your absence of what you would like, what your wishes are. Like, even so far as for me, my daughter knows my favorite hymn is Pass Me Not. She already knows that's going to be in the
Mhm.
funeral or whatever it is that she has to do. She's beneficiary on my accounts and things
Mhm.
of that nature. A lot of families need to know, if you don't tell them where that money goes, it's going to be really hard to get the money out of their account. So put a
Yeah.
beneficiary on there. That's my opinion. So they can have access to funds. Map out a plan. Nobody wants to think about you being gone when you're not here, but it's even harder when you aren't here. Especially having elderly parents, we have a plan. What is that going to look like? How are we going to do it? And luckily, I have a sibling who will, when we actually have to go through that again, we'll be better prepared, because once we went through our GLO stuff, we were like, Mama, we need a little bit more information from you.
Yeah.
One of the
Yeah.
things that was really good, Siobhan, that I would point out is, like, get a piece of paper and write down all your insurance policy numbers on it, the company, and the phone number, all the
Mm.
credit cards that you have, and the phone number. It's really one of the best things we did. We have too many, but when you get that death certificate, we always just in our family order 20. It's more
Mhm.
than what you need, but you'll never know. And so when they need proof, you already have it. You got all the information you need for your family. Like I said, insurance companies, credit card companies, the bank accounts, IRAs, CDs. If you have a
Mhm.
CD, put it all in one place and make sure your family knows where it is. And it makes it easier because at least they have a starting point. Okay, you call this person, you call that person. Last thing that I think was really funny, in Aunt Glo's bin, she had an address book. And in the bin, she had asterisks next to certain names. And those were the people we were supposed to call upon her passing to notify them that she had passed away.
Shut
And
up.
so, no, ma'am. So I still have it, of course. But little things like that, you won't know who to contact because
Right.
throughout our years, I know I grew up in the same place. I lived there for 18 years, but I've been gone for 30. I don't know everybody who my mom talks to now or who she doesn't talk to, but
Right.
who do you want your family to communicate with knowing that you're not here besides family members?
Right, right.
Mhm.
And that is true too. I recently, I've had some deaths in my immediate family and friend group. And I often wonder when, people die, we had a funeral real quick. And I'm like, man, do all their friends know?
Mhm.
The people that we may not connect with that they talk to all the time, do they know and have the opportunity to pay their final respects? But I also like how you talked about bank accounts and IRAs and credit cards, because a lot of times when we think estate planning, we only think is for people who own property, and
Mhm.
your estate is all of you.
Yes.
Not only a property, but your bank accounts, all of you, um, because your family needs to know who gets the money. Because if you don't decide who gets it, the legal system will. It will be
Yes.
unclaimed property. I have a friend of mine who had a spouse pass away years ago, and it was quick, untimely, very shocking. And I think he passed away maybe 3 years ago. Well, a couple of weeks ago, she went to go to one of his bank accounts to get the money, and now she has to take legal. It's a whole thing
Mhm.
just to get that money, right? So estate planning is not just for people who own properties, but it is for all of us. Even if you got a call, who you want to have that 2016 Honda Accord, Siobhan? I don't know. Maybe I'll leave it for my little nephew.
Yes. And she was specific with that in her will too with her
Yeah.
car. So,
See, everything.
mhm.
So if you want to leave a legacy like Aunt Glow did, you can join me June the 1st, 2024 from 11 a.m. to 1 p.m. at First Texas Homes in Lano Springs. We'll have a flyer posted shortly. Um, and we will be doing an estate planning seminar. We'll have a lawyer there to talk about wills and trust. We'll have a life insurance agent there, and we'll also have someone from the title company talking about heirship affidavits if you do have a property and don't have a will. Um, but we want to just get the conversation started. This event is to wet your whistle with the hope that you will take those experts' information and actually get a plan for you and your family. So thank you, Makisha, for sharing your story. And I will see y'all June the 1st.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye bye.